Okay, let's start. So welcome back to the second half of day three. Woohoo! Today we're going to speak about business models 101. Uh, so just imagine, right? Everyone's here to build a great business. Business is great if there is some kind of structure. So structures can be in a very simple way or very deep way, depending on your stage. So now, if you're an early stage startup, the lean canvas is kind of great for a business model already. It just gets you hitting the ground really fast. But as you grow and you hire more people, there is some kind of structure and clarity that's needed. So we won't go so deep into those things in terms of strategy. But in your teachable, I think there's going to be a couple of optional or rather nice to read modules itself. One on strategy, a couple more that goes deeper into business model canvas. So try and see if you have time to watch those content, read that content. There's some videos there too to look at that itself. And then business plans in detail, we'll get that towards the end once we get towards the end of the program itself. But today we want to stress basics of business models itself. So imagine this, right? You're getting in here to build a great business. So I'll just put a number to that. Imagine you want to build a business worth $100 million. So you can take this as ringgit, it's still a big number itself. What are the different ways to do that? So imagine if you're a hunter and you're going out there hunting on a hunting ground, you got to have a game plan in terms of what is worth hunting, right? If you have only a certain number of time, people and resources going out there to hunt, you'd want to hunt that ground particular animal, which is not right. But anyway, that's an example. So same thing goes with the business ecosystem. You got to know who you're hunting out there. So to get a 100 million business, imagine this. Imagine if you're going for flies, or really, really, really small things. So to get 100 million, if it's in terms of size of the fly, we're talking about consumers and users. You need 10 million consumers to pay you $10 per year, 10 ringgit per year. And that's how you're going to make 100 million. So now you got to ask yourself, right? If I am doing a B2C related business, I'm getting my consumers to buy, would they be paying you more than $10 or $10 less? Uh, can you get 10 million customers in the first place to basically pay you $10? What's our population? 30 million. So 1/3 of Malaysia has to buy your product. So how reasonable is that? So this draws back on what we spoke about the lesson right before lunch, right? We spoke about segmentation. So you know how it adds up to this total addressable market of an X dollar value or a Y number size of people that would use your product. So if that number is severely far away from 10 million, I mean, in terms of weddings per year in Malaysia, there's about 190,000 weddings. That's far away from 10 million. So what are you going to do? How are you going to basically change that plan then? So then if you go up the ladder itself and say, instead of flies, let's catch mice. So if you catch mice, and these are end users too, you need 1 million mice to pay you $100 per year. So that's 10 times more than the previous one, but it's also 10 times lesser customers you have to find. So maybe a little bit more palatable. So again, depends on the product you're putting out there. What are you selling? Is $100 then seen as an okay amount, too much amount? So if you go up the stack then in terms of saying the bigger animals, hunting rabbits, think of rabbits as smaller businesses. In Malaysia, there's about 700,000 SMEs, right? So that's a captive audience there. Not really a captive audience, but that's an audience there itself. So if rabbits were 100,000 units you're looking for, then they just have to pay you $1,000 per year. But this can't be a one-off buy, a $1,000 product. It could be a subscription-based model, so on and so forth. So I hope you get what we're trying to basically get to, right? So the more up the stack you do, the more complicated the product, the more you could basically charge the consumer or the customer itself. So if you're hunting deers, you need 10,000 medium-sized paying businesses paying 10,000 a year. And then the final one is if you're hunting elephants, that's the one you're coveted by the hunters, right? 1,000 enterprise customers paying you 100,000 per year. This would be really large enterprise-based businesses that does stuff like that. But are you building a business like that? How far are you from building a business like that? So there are always ways to make 100 million, but which bucket do you fall under to make it a bit more easier? So if you go a little bit more deeper, to give you a bit more context, coming back to flies, to have 10 million active users or actually paying customers, you can't just say, I look for 10 million, I have 10 million, right? There's always this thing called a funnel. There's this conversion rates. So for every customer that comes to your site, or every 10 customers that come to your site, how many of them will actually become a customer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? There's always a percentage of that. So to get 10 million, more likely you need over 100 million visits or viewers to your site. And out of that, possibly 10 million could convert out of the 100 million itself. So you're talking about 10%. So that's even worse. This country only has 30 million people. So if your solution is not regional by default, then how are you going to find the rest of the 70 million people? So for products like this, because of the sheer volume it needed, it has to be inherently very social. It's got to be having this high viral coefficient. So some words I'm going to mention here has not been spoke about. These are called metrics. So we'll speak about that in the next topic, but I'll just, maybe mention one or two of those keywords and explain about that. So high viral coefficient means there's a high likely chance of this getting viral, or someone basically promoting this for you or sharing this. So the NPS is pretty good also. So lots of user-generated content leading to massive SEO content. So that's basically what you want. So the more that it could be driven by the consumers itself, and that's basically quite good. Okay, see another poll that just popped up. I'm gonna move it out my window. So if you look at mice, 1 million paying customers, so that would hold true still to the fly principle itself. So you need 10 to 20 million people trying your application. So this will be a very trial related kind of software. So you always have this great referral loop. Someone discovers your product, they do something with it, create some kind of value from it, and they love it, and then they'll share and tell other people that you are great and they should also use your particular product then itself. If you're talking about rabbits, 100,000 small businesses, very similar. So it's also trial signups. You need maybe less than 5 to 2 million. So that's basically 500,000 to 2 million trial signups itself. And it's spent about usually a cost of acquisition at this amount, right? They're going to be spending quite a substantial amount. So $1,000. So 10% of that, $100 per sign up, it's an okay amount to basically spend on acquisition itself. But there's no silver bullet for something like that. You have to make sure also your product is worthy for them to basically talk about and use and like. So this kind of stuff needs to be automated as much as possible. How do you have some kind of excellent inbound marketing? So the affiliates, the linking, all the systems in place, the great CRM systems. When it comes in, you can close the leads pretty well. When it comes to deers, you want to basically have the same principle with the rabbits. So you need to look at how do you get another 500,000 to 2 million kind of deers out there. And that would basically have a conversion rates possibly to the 10,000 businesses you want. Same thing, you need a great product for a trial system to work. They get to try it out, they like it, and then they want to buy. You also may need a better inside sales force because your price point for this is going to go up a little bit more. So, I mean, going up to $1,000 or more. So you want to make sure you have a great sales team that basically handles such clients. So they'll have certain kind of expectations. And then for elephants, you need to acquire 1,000 large enterprise, right? So this could take years and millions to build a product to get to the point you can charge $100,000 in terms of having a product market fit. It takes a long while for you to basically grow that business to get to that level itself. But ideally, you want to make sure if you're going to do something like that, you have a great founding team that has some kind of enterprise sales DNA within that. You want to basically have a team that has that experience selling at that level and that pricing before you just jump in it and saying, I want to build an enterprise system and I have no idea how enterprise clients basically work. So if there's some of you want to know a little bit more about this, let me know. We've got a guest speaker that wants to come on, the guys from Accenture that wants to speak more, and how do you deal with this kind of level of clients and how you could basically work with Accenture, possibly to get to that level itself. So business model, what is it? Well, it's a combination of a few things, right? So if you look at your lean canvas, there's a few things it speaks about. It speaks about product, it speaks about channel, which is marketing, and it speaks about your cost and revenue, which is your profits. So essentially, a business model talks about how do you create value, and that's basically your product. How do you capture value, make money, that's your profits, and how do you deliver value, which is the channels and marketing itself. That's the foundation you need to basically figure out. If you're kind of like lacking in one area of their business model, then there's going to be some issues. Like in this case, if you're not sure how to capture value, as in you're not having a great way to price it or get some profits out of it, then small profits means, lack of fundings coming in. It's not fundable or something not sustainable to this extent. If it's on the other side of the chart over here, we talk about delivery of value is lacking. That means it could be a few things, right? It could be very hard to sell. The LTV means the lifetime value in terms of how much a customer would pay across a period of time, and CAC is basically the cost of acquisition cost, the customer acquisition cost. So the ratio means if you only could make $100 from the customer and you spend $200 to acquire the customer, that's just plain silly math itself. It doesn't basically make sense. So people would wait to invest in such things until it gets a little bit more better in their metrics. So you want to make sure that capturing value and delivering value is both at equal par. Creating value, I don't have to speak about, because if you don't have a great product, nothing's going to move at all for sure, right? So business model is the top level view in terms of all the moving pieces and how you basically would have the customer segments dealing with the delivery channels to get your value proposition. And the value proposition is based on a couple of problems that you spoke about, how you're different, and all those aspects are there. Revenue model is a subset of it. That's partly how you're going to make money. So just the finance aspect of the business model, that's what the revenue model is. And a revenue model could have many different revenue streams, which is specific ways on channels and you're getting money, but the overall model is the top level there itself. So just get used to those keywords. There's no test at the end, so don't worry so much about that. And the other thing to know about, again, is the business model is not a business plan. If you guys have never seen a business plan before, we'll show you a template that we basically use that derives from the accelerator for the 12-week program on how all the stuff you've done in your business model is expanded further. You'll talk about short-term, mid-term, long-term strategies from marketing, from product, from research, from everything. It always covers these few aspects of things. So let's talk about some of the typical business models out there. I mean, most of you would fall under these particular buckets itself. So let's talk about them. So the first 3, 4, 5, 6 is very common. The 7th one, if you heard my talk previously, is kind of repeat, so I won't go so deep about that. Is the new one that everyone's talking about. So B2B is basically businesses doing business with businesses, obviously. Very supplier-oriented, buyer-oriented. You see this, of course, in the manufacturing or automobile industry. So if I'm making a car, I'm going to buy tires from another kind of big business rather than buying it directly from the consumers. Doesn't make sense. Nor does the consumer buy directly from the particular supplier in this case, because there's always a middleman in between. So this is basically 2 or more businesses doing things together among themselves. So it's definitely a lucrative thing. I wouldn't say it's a very sexy business model out there, but the ones who do this, if they do this well, makes definitely a lot. B2C, that's businesses doing things with the consumers directly. So this could be very product or services centric. It could be online, it could be offline. Example, of course, is Netflix. They provide us content and we view it. You pay them directly for a digital way of consuming it. But it calls me as great as Starbucks or McDonald's, where you have to go there and get it, or a delivery third party comes and brings it to you itself. So, I mean, this ones, I'm sure you guys know what this is. So here then it gets a little bit more interesting on how you could chain these things and combine it. So B2B2C means there is a way for you to get towards the end customers, but it's not you directly going through that. You go through a middleman, an intermediary itself. So in this case, Senang is one of our startups we invested in about a year plus ago. They deal with insurance. So we work with insurance partners at the back. But when we sell insurance, we don't sell insurance directly to the end customer. We make it in the form of an API so that other businesses that want to create new revenue streams or want to basically resell or upsell insurance or cross-sell insurance would basically just plug into our APIs and provide it to the end customers. So we essentially get customers buying our plans indirectly through another business. So example is, if you use a service like Mud Dispatch, Zepto Express, and Made Easy or these things online, when you book a maid to come to your house for a certain dollars per hour to clean up your place, you can always choose to add on insurance. So for a measly 5 to maybe 10 ringgit extra, the maid that's coming in, be it a guy or girl, it's going to be getting a public liability insurance coverage for herself and your premises, so that if anything happens, you're covered. But we don't sell it directly to you. Made Easy is selling it on our behalf. So it's B2B2C. That's basically what that business model entails. Yeah. So if you look at the one that's being sold by Udu Celcom, that's basically actually powered by Senang. So sometimes you don't even see the brand behind it. It's seen to be an offering from Made Easy and all these guys, where at the back is someone like us that's basically powering the whole system. So with Amazon, same thing, right? You go online, you buy a product you want. Sometimes you don't notice whether the product's directly coming from Amazon or it's coming from another smaller merchant that's on Amazon. In fact, even though it's coming from a merchant on Amazon, it's actually fulfilled by Amazon because they've just put all their products and warehousing stuff with Amazon itself. So it kind of blurs around the edges sometimes. There's a C2C business model too. So this is when consumers deal with consumers. You see this a big time in the marketplaces. So most marketplaces use this concept, like Muda and Carousel. Anyone could sell to anyone, anyone could buy from anyone. It's a bit of a cowboy territories out there. So there's always some issues dealing with this in terms of fraud and all. So and payment, trying to get payment done properly on this with escrow usually as the best model itself. There's B2G. This will be very specific to only a few people that would do such like that, where you're creating products and services that is going to be targeted towards government. So this would be military kind of work, defense, military, certain kind of big stuff like space, airlines, possibly those kind of products. There's C2B, consumer to business. So that's a bit interesting of it. So customers create value and business consume it. Typically, this kind of review sites are much of that model. So TripAdvisor, platform where you can look into getting reviews and ratings of the travel industry, whether a hotel is great, the stay was great, the staff was amazing. So people just provide all that particular content for free on these platforms. And the benefit out of it is the businesses will know whether they're doing well, take that advice and want to basically work on it. So it's like sort of like someone ranting there, and they could basically get the business to talk to them and solve their particular needs there. So Yelp is the same, and so on and so forth. Direct to consumer, this is some of the new ones that's been popping up. I wouldn't say it's new, it's just been being emphasized right now, but it's always been there. I think this is what China's been doing a lot with Alibaba, with AliExpress, where you could directly buy, even though minimum quantities, directly from a supplier or factory in China, so you can get things for really cheap. So with technology today, especially e-commerce, this has allowed manufacturers to bypass the conventional methods of working with a retailer or reseller. Although they're still there, people would buy from the suppliers and mark up and create those little Facebook pages and sell it off there. But sometimes you can find that you can get cheaper by going directly to the manufacturer itself. So the most famous one would be someone like Casper's. They sell mattresses online. I've seen a few startups try and do that in Malaysia too. So you can buy a mattress, pay a very affordable rate, bring the mattress to you. You can sleep on it, use it, and after a good time, or like say 100 days, you can choose to even return it back, no questions asked. So that's quite interesting. In terms of homegrown farms and home tastes, these were very food-related, vegetable-related investments we had. So you could have directly from the farm ship vegetables to your particular table itself. All right, so that's some of the business models that is basically out there. I'm sure you heard most of them. So I wanted just you to know there are many different options out there. And if you're thinking of such options, know that particular hunting of those animals principle, right? How big is that segment of market you have? What is the pricing you're looking at? Does a B2C approach even make sense? Maybe you have to figure out how to go from B2C to B2B. Then would there be businesses willing to pay you that bigger ticket size? And are there enough businesses out there to pay you that particular price point for you to get towards that kind of greater total addressable market? So coming back to the cost and revenue, we go back to the lean canvas. We've done most of this particular sections already, but the two lower parts here has cost structure and revenue streams. So cost is basically where you're spending your money, revenue is where you're making your money. So this is where I want you guys to figure out, what are ways you could basically make more money, right? If you're thinking just a couple of revenue streams in your mind, try and broaden your horizons by thinking about other business models. And I'm going to show you later on in the day other revenue models that are out there that you may think about trying to capitalize on that you may have not heard of. So this is something all of you need to update in your lean canvas. If you have not done that already, this will be a homework to try and top up and add these two columns within your documents. So if you look at it from a opportunity standpoint, I think this is also in your workbook, some exercises to do. We'll maybe take a short, 10-minute break to just go into our breakout rooms and speak a little bit about this so everyone can get to the same level before we go any further. What are opportunities in terms of cost and revenues you can think of? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities there? So the traditional models, they have those very much one-time transaction revenues. But what we want to try and get to is that kind of recurring revenue. How easy or how difficult is that for you? Would someone pay you a subscription price to keep getting that particular services day in, day out? So how difficult is that? So for our homegrown farms, that was what basically we did. You could go online and maybe say buy vegetables directly from someone. But we know people have to eat vegetables all the time. So what we did was created a subscription model. You pay 50 ringgit, you get a bag of about 3 kilos worth of vegetables. You can't even choose the vegetables you want. You take veggies based on what we give you. Because all you want is some greens, right? And you always want variety. So every week you get this different kind of bags of greens and you just eat them and you stay on the subscription plan for as many weeks as you basically want. So that's something that was interesting. So sometimes you could say if you want it cheaper, then could you pay up front for those weeks itself? So you see this very much in how you buy software as a service these days, right? If I pay for an annual plan, I get maybe a 20% discount. If I go month to month, then it's the same rates you keep paying every month itself. So could you do that for your particular business? Try and figure out what else are customers willing to pay for. So when you did that particular interview, I think some of you guys saw some interesting answers that came in. Those who dared push the envelope and ask questions about pricing, how much would they pay, how much transaction fees would they be willing to let go out of a sale. I think some of the property guys did that. And they were shocked to see the numbers that came back, and the numbers they thought was going to be smaller came to be a little bit more bigger. So you'd be surprised if you won't know what you don't know if you don't ask, right? Do we have cross-selling opportunities? So what we found interesting with Senang was no one thinks about selling insurance. In fact, no one wakes up thinking about buying insurance or go to sleep thinking about buying insurance. It's something that just has to be there and then at that particular moment. So we work with some of the major startups. I think most of the major startups in the country right now use our particular APIs to sell insurance. So things like if I'm sending a document from A to B and the document is not that particular sensitive, it's fine. But if it's a parcel, it's worth something, you're worried that you may lose it, it might get damaged. So why not just pay a couple of dollars extra for insurance at that point of time? So when you prompt that kind of questions to the consumer at that point of time, if you understood their particular beliefs and behaviors, you found that, oh, they didn't mind paying a little bit more for that assurance. So that became a nice cross-selling opportunity. All the major startups now are reselling insurance, but they never had that in their revenue streams at all. Now we've added that there for them. So think about, what else could you add or create in terms of revenue streams? Could you increase prices? So that's something to be worried about when you start with something brand new like you guys. The trouble is, you start and you lowball everything and put such a small or low price. That's going to be an issue. If later on you want to increase, you're going to just piss off more people. But if you want to decrease the cost or decrease the prices, that's something that's fine. That's something you could basically do. So don't try and start with such a low ceiling that makes it hard for you to try and change your prices. And always keep in mind, where else could you reduce costs? Of course, in terms of overheads and situations like this, you want to try and keep it as low as possible. Try and leverage more digital things so you can scale even faster. In terms of threats, if you look at your lean canvas and your cost and revenues and even the rest of the business models, part of it, like customer segments and channels, do you see when you did that segmentation, there were any particular massive competitors that were in that particular scene already, right? What are your threats towards those competitors coming in and basically helping, or not really helping, but causing you to shave off certain margins if you want to get into that particular market? Is it even worth it? So are you dependent on just specific revenue streams? Like if people don't buy products from you online, then that's it. There's no other way you could monetize the data or something else within your particular platform. So is there a specific revenue stream you think would disappear? So if you were thinking about something that's so timely, in this case, making revenues from bookings of office spaces from unutilized spaces itself. So that's definitely going to be like disappeared in the next few months. Whether it will come back again or not, who knows? So how do you come up with new kind of revenue streams always as a backup plan? That's something interesting itself. When do costs threaten to be unpredictable? Like in terms of now, certain kind of raw ingredients, certain kind of suppliers have not been available in terms of going back to work. Hence, it made some scarcity on certain things, and that would have definitely increased the cost of certain products and therefore made it difficult for you to maintain certain margins if you're still running a business right now. So all these things just to have at the back of your mind. So we just wanted you, like, if possible, in your workbook, there's a little table. Just want you to try and think about what are opportunities and threats that you see in your particular cost and revenue. So that's something I want to maybe pause right now and have you guys work on this. So we go back to the wedding example. Opportunities could be if you thought people would just come on the platform, pay us as a software as a service tool, and then pick the vendors, pick the wedding planners, and run their own particular wedding. But what if there's an opportunity for the platform to be that particular wedding planner? Could the platform be engaged to provide consultancy services in the first place? So that could be a new revenue stream and opportunity for you. You might be seen as competing with a particular um, wedding planners, but that's an option there. Or could you just do like a bundle deal? So think about not having the bride and groom figure out what they need to put all together. You have a package that it has everything pre-assembled and all they have to do is click to buy and everything's done for them. So those kind of bundle deals doesn't make sense. Because in terms of threats, you'd be thinking there's a lot of people are going to go up against you, right? Like hotel locations. When someone goes there to get married and or they really have an ideal location in mind, the hotel will do some of the work that a wedding planner would do or what you would do too. They will have their preferred vendors. They will just want to keep everything among themselves. So that could be a threat to you, right? And certain wedding planners, if they're famous enough, will not like your platform and they would go out and build certain platforms of their own and say, only work with the best and the best vendors. Why do you need a listing of 300 photographers when I can tell you the top 3 guys in town that takes the best photos and I've got preferred rates with them? So that could immediately be a threat when someone goes up against you that way. So hence the offer consultancy services for consumers directly, an opportunity for you to compete back makes more sense. So this is what I want you to try and work on at the moment, just to get the creative juices flowing, not saying come up with a solid answer right now. So what we're going to do is figure out a few things, right? So go back to your lean canvas. I want you to see if you can do your cost and revenues. Think about those particular 2 things. And then this particular table in terms of opportunities and threats you see towards your cost and revenues right now at this particular moment, what would they look like? So I'm going to just pause here right now. I'm going to look at the chat and see as he keeps seeing that flash orange. So something's going on there. I want to see how people are reacting, what kind of questions you're asking. And at the same time, if possible, start breaking us up into our breakout rooms. And so we could work on that. But let's just scroll through some questions. Max, Kavita, just feel to jump on in if there's any questions.
One of the main question that people might have and they can get confused easily is, what's the difference between a B2C and D2C? Because essentially the consumer is still a end receiver, right?
Yeah, so the D2C is you're working directly with a supplier, but the B2C is not necessary that's a supplier. The B could just be you are buying, let's say, honey from a person that is making honey, and then you have honey.com, but you're not producing it, you're just selling it to someone. So that's B2C, a business selling directly to the consumer. But a D2C is where you're going to be worried is when this guy's in the factory says, you know what, I'm just going to use my own platform right now because it's so easy to directly sell to the consumer. I'm selling the realhoney.com and you go directly to the source. So you could be out of a business model eventually when every distributor does that. So some distributors don't want the trouble because of the minimum quantity. They go like, you want me to figure out how to send 1 bottle of honey to KL when I want to basically sell 5,000 to the business that will buy it from me at a lower price, but we mark it up later on for them. Or I want to deal with 1 by 1 guy and then figure out my logistics and all. So it's not for everyone. Not all suppliers would say they want to do that. But as technology comes up with better solutions to do this, especially logistics is now kind of logistics as a service. It's not even an effort, right? I could work with any particular logistics provider out there that would come to me, take the product, even though it's 1 or 10 or 100 bottles, and send it back to whoever it is. I just have to push the cost back to the consumer. They pay and they can do that. So that's the major difference between the B2B and the D2C. So now you're seeing a lot of D2C because of the situation, and they're saying, oh, I'm not going to have enough sales because your businesses are all closed. They're not going to buy from you. You're stuck with product. How do we sell the product directly? That's exactly what happened in Cameron Highlands. All the guys that had these vegetables go, my supply chain is not working. They're not coming taking it from me. What am I going to do? All these greens, I have to throw it away. But if there was a means for them to sell directly to the consumer and they're not dependent on that supply chain, or the supply chain is reduced to a lesser number of moving pieces, then it's going to be a little bit more better for them to run a business.
So would you say something like Grab Food would be a B2C, and when a restaurant sells directly to a customer, it's a D2C?
So a Grab Food, depending on who's asking the question, for the business, he's going from a B to B to C because he's going through like a merchant in Amazon through Grab to basically get towards the consumer itself. So that's a B to B to C. So cloud kitchens are going to be that. Cloud kitchens will have two models: D2C, where I'm cooking and selling it directly, or I'm just cooking for a concept of Grab and Food Panda to buy for me. I'm never bothered to have dine-in customers ever again. So that's a very different approach. You still need the consumers to buy. It's not B2B because Grab's not buying your food and keeping it, right? They only buy your food when, or rather sell your food when there's a consumer buying it. So that's a B2B to C. In terms of your wedding marketplace, consumers are going online and dealing directly with the vendors. So that's a B2C from a consumer perspective. But if you're dealing just with vendors directly and selling them products, that's B2B. So in your case, this is more B2C for your wedding. You're getting all the particular vendors at the back, and you're providing it directly to the consumers itself. To the vendor, the vendor will say that if they only want to rely on one source of income, which is you, the photographer will say, I'm doing B2B to C. I'm just going to go on this particular wedding platform and get access to their customers. I'm not doing anything else on the side. So it's also about, who's asking the question. If you're asking as a platform, then you're B2C as a wedding platform. Yeah, so now vegetable guys, the fish guys, but some of the fish guys are not really directly from their own. They're going through like key opinion people. These are like, social influencers who are trying to basically sell online. So there's still a little bit of a middleman there. So just watch out who you're buying from.
Vikesh,
Hmm.
Murali here. I had a question not answered earlier. You were talking about flies and elephants.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a standard profit margin across these different types, or they differ very much?
It depends on the product and your scale, your volume. It depends on your authority to charge. So no, there's no straight up. But if you look into some generalization in terms of OEM electronics, that's like less than 5-10% margins and stuff like that. So that's some things that has margins on. For food you will definitely see more, but that's something that is very subjective. The same nasi lemak could go branded high, could be 25 ringgit, people would still pay for it. But it could go as low as 2 ringgit 50 cents also for it. So very subjective. So your particular objective is, as an entrepreneur, how do you sell that value, right? What are you putting out there that justifies that the price point you put there makes more sense?
So, all right, I think that's pretty much it for now. I think
Just maybe 15 minutes to go into breakout rooms, so we could um, just give you some breathing room to try out something, and then we'll come back here
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Yeah, should be good in timing.
All right. Take it away, Kavita.
So software as a service, yeah, we'll speak about that. Those are not business models. That's more revenue models. So that's how you're going to basically get money, by selling software and a subscription model itself. So I'll speak about that towards the end today itself. So that's why they're not stated in the business models we had earlier. But it's very loose. You can look up new business models, and it's blur edges between business models and revenue models now. As long as you know what you're talking about and how you want to sell it, that's the gist of it. You make sure you take home.
Hello, guys. So I think it's just going to be a very short breakout session. So just work on a lean canvas and fill up the revenue and cost structure. So I think just you don't have to be too specific of like, my product is going to be 5 ringgit or 10 ringgits per month, right? It could just be something simple like subscription, or you could enter something like ad revenue. So I think in TTTTTT.my's case, it'll be more like ad revenue. It could be paid sponsorship. I don't know, something you could work on in the future. Also, that's something you can talk about lah. But I think right now, just focus on the ones that you can acquire right now. It's good to have also those that you believe you can also get in the future. And as for cost, to achieve that revenue, what must you have, right? You must develop content. So content requires money, right? You pay someone to create content for you. There's definitely going to be marketing and etc. Maybe collaterals also. So that's where I can be working towards. So I think this is pretty much simple because I'm pretty sure all of you guys in some sense know what you guys want to create, and it's going to be crazy just creating something for the sake of creating. So I'm pretty sure you guys want to make a lot of money from it, right? So you just can identify how you plan to make money from it.
Hi, Max. Do you want to have a look at mine? Because I did it before.
Yeah, I mean, yours is very straightforward, right?
Yeah. You saw it?
I haven't seen it yet. Are you sharing a screen?
Hold on.
And yeah. And hello there, TJ. I don't think I've met you yet, right? But yeah, we can talk later lah. Okay, yeah, I'll just check it out. So definitely a revenue stream is sales. Okay. Product development.
Can be online.
Product development now.
Okay, so what happened is I'm also doing ODM.
Okay.
There's some people coming in that they want me to produce, for example, my cream now. There's some ODM coming in who has like 200 customers or clients under them, asking if they should use my cream for baby products.
I see.
You know what I mean?
That'll
So
be
it's
a separate brand.
selling, yeah.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, so something like that. So
okay.
Right.
And this, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so the other one is tenders for government.
Yep. And then for your cost, it's production, marketing, salaries.
And postage and packaging costs for the online stuff.
I think that's pretty much it. I guess your business is very easy because it's very straightforward, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
All
I'm
right.
not sure if for product development you might need research or stuff like that. No?
Yeah, research.
I guess
so
that
Huh?
That could be a cost structure, or potentially a cost structure could also be what's it called? Getting the licenses, right? Or certificate.
That's for so you need to put that. I thought it's under production cost.
Oh, when I thought of production, I thought you meant like raw materials and converting it.
Yeah, into the product. But before you can sell the product, you need to register the product. But normally it's only once.
Yeah, I think that's good to also include it in your cost structures, just so that you can be clear about it lah.
Okay. All right.
Because I mean, if you're doing your financial model, it's going to be two very different costing lah, right? One is just going to be raw material, manpower or something like that. That's your production cost, and then everything else is licenses or like. But I mean, I wouldn't know it as good as you, because I mean it's your business.
Yeah, we still have to register, especially if we want to, because there's different type of registration. One is cosmetics and OTC or pharmaceuticals. Cosmetics is just cheap. It's just 50 ringgit.
Yeah, and your company is pronounced as Garda, right? Or Gard?
Garde. Yeah, Garde. I don't know how to put the dot on top.
I see. So I was like,
that's like a line on top. Yeah.
Yeah, Garde. Okay.
Yeah, Garde. It means protect. Yeah.
It's French.
It's not really French. It's not free French. I think it's some of the European countries.
Okay, one of those. Right?
Yeah, one of those, but it's not French. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Max, can I show you mine?
Sure.
Yep. So for mine is in terms of the money going out is
The revenue first.
our revenue right here. Yep. So subscription,
Okay.
then power up subscription.
What do you mean
that's
by
like-
power up subscriptions?
So we build custom functions for selected sectors. So in this case, we are starting
You
with
build or you provide?
we get feedback from clients and then we build and then we resell to everyone. Yeah.
I don't think you should call it power up subscription. You could call it bespoke something. It's not power up subscription per se, because I think for the first guy who wants like something, you're not going to say, okay, if I can sell to 7 guys, I'm going to divide the cost by 7. You're going to charge him like upfront 40K or something like that, right?
No. We will basically get the feedback, then we build it up and then let him test if he's okay, and then we just roll it out to everyone else to have access to this function.
Oh, that's actually a
Yeah.
very, I don't think that's a good model, you know. Because
Why,
like, what if a function is something unique only to them?
Understand?
Yeah. So like, I think for like other services or like other SaaS models, when you want to get a specific function just for you, they'll charge you a one-time cost just for you.
Understood.
Like for example, if you have a SaaS model and they say, oh, can you integrate it for me? You're going to charge them an integration cost to customize it to their system, right?
Yep.
So I think you should call it, more like integration, right? Or like more, I guess something more custom, like the word around customize, right? And power up subscription.
Understood. Because we in a way we are also building this tech up so that at the end goal is somehow the functions that's available can be actually congregated into an enterprise solutions.
Yeah, but you don't want to take the risk of saying, okay, I'll charge you a cheaper price and cross my fingers, hopefully someone will also use this.
Understood.
And then once you have so much power up subscription, right, it's going to be so confusing for someone. Okay, I take this plan and then I'm going to take 15 other functions where I want. That's just confusing in my opinion.
Understood.
So I think
you can
more
review on it.
yeah, I guess one more you can do is also like integration, customization. All this is something you can charge at a one-time fee. It could be a cheap one like 1,002 or something like that, just to
Understand.
create it to your system. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. Can we go to the cost structure?
Give me a second. So yeah, right here. So salaries, marketing, online ads, infra costs.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
I guess subscription. You can just say subscriptions. Okay, okay, that's fine. It's like saying, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No problem. Cheers. Okay, 5 minutes left, guys.
Hi, Max.
Hi.
Can I share mine?
Sure.
All right.
I mean, I already gave you your answers, so that's
yeah. So just maybe you can look at the TMS as well first. Just whether it's feasible.
By 5% working, 30% at age of 18 to 45. That's a big range, but okay, that's fine. Urban 3.2. So rather than just having demographic focus, right? I think you can come in with something more, what's it called? More unique to your identity. Because if I just take this TAM, right, it can literally be applied to everyone else. Like maybe I can even apply it to Shariza's Garde, right? Or maybe even Serliang's cooking one.
So like if previously, if that's the case, because previously before this I have done a market survey. It's based on the few food review platforms available in Malaysia, like OpenRice and all those. So from there, I gathered their visitors, monthly visitors.
Something like that. It's more like people who already look at food review.
Food
sites.
reviews, so that would be a better case for me.
Rather than start at 32 million, I don't think
Alright.
that's where you'll be climbing. So I think the TAM for you, you should see the way you want to do it is you want to climb upwards, right? So let's say you start at 30% of the market and then climb towards all suburbans. I don't think all urban people will use your platform, right?
Okay, all right.
Or 80% of all urban Malaysians will use your platform. I don't think that is possible. So I think it's something you want to climb up that makes sense. So like, okay, I want to capture the lowest triangle first and then slowly I'll build my way up.
All right, okay, understood. So it's better for me to use the bottom top, you were saying?
No, use this way, but create more unique.
Unique, all right. Into this field, the food.
Correct. More on your field. For example, how many people go out to eat every single day, right?
All right.
Those type of criteria. I think that's more unique to you.
Okay, all right, understood. Because the reason why I put it this way is because I'm targeting those white collar workers. So I mean lunchtime they'll go out and eat. So that's why I put in the working population and the age of 18 to 45 is because this would be the age that they would go online to search for reviews. So if they are too old, I don't think they will go and search for
that
it.
could be your highest one, you know. Instead of 32 million Malaysians, that could be a working population already there. You could probably narrow it down slightly more and then maybe make it more unique to you. Who are your early adopters? If you're telling me 30% of all urban age 18 to 45 they are working is your customer, I don't think they're early adopters.
Okay.
Maybe people who would share their food, post pictures or something like that, right?
Yes, correct.
More towards your alley.
Okay. All right. So I'll move on to my canvas.
Yep.
So the cost structure.
Advertisements, third-party API integration. Okay, that's in the future. Value-added service to F&B data. Okay. I think for advertisement, you can just split it into two, right? One is Google Ads and one is really, what's it called? Sponsored content, right? I think that's
sponsored content. Yeah.
I think that's two very different income that you'll be having. One, the advertisement income from Google is going to be consistent in some sense, right? You get visitors, you're just going to get that X amount. Whereas the sponsorship is where you need to actually work with an outreach team to actually walk to each store and
marketing team to go and reach them.
So I think you should split up those advertisements.
All right, okay. All right. Yep. And for cost structure, it's very straightforward. It's a server investment maintenance.
Development costs.
And
marketing costs.
Yep.
I think, that's pretty much it. I guess if you want to provide rewards for people to put in their reviews, that's something.
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's in the pipeline as well. Yeah. Oh, so I'll need to put that one. Is not under marketing cost, is it?
When you say marketing, it's a very vague thing. So I would always try to stay away from marketing, right? You have to be more clear on that. So what's your marketing? Is it Google Ads? Is it offline marketing?
Okay. That's so it's like customer acquisition cost and
because if you're an investor, you just want to do marketing. You're like, what the heck is your marketing, right?
Okay.
So it's very vague. It's better to show them you know what you actually want. The clearer you are, the clearer the investor will be.
Okay, understood. All right. Thanks, Max.
Cheers. Okay, we have what? I saw a countdown. 28 seconds remaining. Okay, a question from LOL. Can you use mine? Use your one. Hey, Praveen, you can speak, right? Why are you so shy today? Oh, speaker problem. See mine. Oh, yeah, but I'm pretty sure if the moment you click share, Aaron's gonna bring us back to the real room. Because it's really 0. But you can continue later. There's going to be another breakout at 4, I think. Do it next time, you can straight away do it later. Hey, Praveen, buy a new one, a new, it's got headphones or something. All right, see you guys.
Okay, see the numbers climbing back up. It's really nice to see we still consistently have got at least that 90 people still in the program. It's not a severe drop off. So in your rooms just now, you would have had a chance to maybe talk about your trends and opportunities or threats and opportunities in the whole space of revenues and costs. If you didn't have, then we still have another session after this. Some of you, I think on our room, we were talking about someone else's survey to go through the details again. So again, there's plenty of time to really catch up with these things. We've got 2 more days, so don't worry too much. Just make sure there's 2 things. So the columns at the bottom, cost and revenue for your lean canvas is keyed in the next coming days itself. All right, so now what we want to work on is a little bit more about setting milestones. So next particular gear is in your pitch deck towards the end, as you want to convince people like you need so much funding, you need to also tell them what your plan is. So this is where milestones come in. Milestones are basically a way to show that you've got some kind of strategic planning process. It tells you the critical kind of points you will have in your startup. And it could be from various different aspects, right? It could be from a product development, market development, hiring, fundraising. The timeline could indicate many different things. So you want to sort of like alternate various different topics or sectors or categories within this milestone to give someone looking at it a clear picture of what's going to happen next. So in terms of very early stage companies, usually a good 6 months, 9 months is maximum what kind of clarity you want to give them for a milestone. Anyone later than that, post seed going towards Series A, usually it's a 12 to 18-month window. Usually you always ask for funding for 18 months because you're going to spend a good 6 months to raise money. So you want to make sure for 1 year, 12 months, no one's going to disturb you. You can put your head down and just focus on your work and not panic about running out of money if you raise the correct amount, obviously. So this is what it looks like for a typical milestone, right? This was close to a year from May 2019 to June 2020. The different kind of stages they would have from a product, from a user standpoint and partner standpoint itself. So it looks typically like this. So the whole idea of why you create milestones also, it's basically some kind of proof, right? So why you set it, it's proof for many different reasons. Proof that you can work together as a team, so we can see some kind of output. We know the team can deliver within 6 months. That means there's something there. If you don't see much milestones set and no output coming in that particular span of 3 to 6 months, then you know that something's not basically working. So it also means you could build something and so you could get a working prototype out. It shows that it's useful to someone if you start indicating how you've moved from users to clients. So you had the free beta users to paying customers, your first paying customer, your next 50, 100 kind of customers, or organic customers, inorganic customers. So if your milestone from a marketing standpoint shows all that, then it gives you an idea this product has product fit. It's proof that you can talk to investors. If you have a milestone and this talks about your fundraising activities, then I can see how you've gone from family and friends to pre-seed to seed and so on and so forth. This Thursday, we'll be doing some talks on finance and investments. So this time we're going to have another speaker come on board. So Rustam from Kumpulan Modal Perdana, great guy, genius in terms of all these things. He's going to share with you all the different kind of insights you need to know from someone raising funds. So prove you can speak to audiences. So I'm just going to go through this. Attracting talent. So sometimes you even show your key hires in a timeline. Proof that the ecosystem agrees with you. Proof there's a market in terms of total sales that you can manage. Finances, if it's a very finance-oriented milestone. And of course, in terms of can you scale if the numbers go bigger. So that's what milestones are for, to give investors or anyone looking at your particular pitch deck some kind of validation or proof that you know what you're doing, you're on the right track. So that's basically what we want to do. So milestones are set this way. There'll be a current category you'll be on, and then the milestones are broken down to different steps with a final outcome at the end. So think of it like a time series, right? So this is a product roadmap category kind of milestone. The extreme end should be what your end timeline is going to look like. So if I said, show me a milestone that you're going to do for the next 6 months, next 3 months, what's going to be at the end is, either you ship a product or you have a product with customers, or a product that's not just an MVP and it has the premium features too. But In between then, you have to break it down. What does it take to get towards that outcome? That's what we want. So some examples of milestones look like this, right? So this is very product centric. You start with a prototype, got an MVP, you have a beta, private and public, officially launch new features, and then you build some new products. From a customer milestone, it could be as simple as I started with surveys, so it's very qualitative, then I go down to very quantitative method. So from testing with MVPs to private beta users to paying users. And then at one point of time, I want to say that my organic growth is bigger than my inorganic growth itself. So instead of me just paying for users, the organic customers coming in are larger than what I paid for. So that's a great milestone. But that won't be 6 months. That's going to be way longer for sure. Marketing milestones, what do you do in terms of launching campaigns, getting partnerships, achieving certain kind of mentions within media, trying to get certain kind of percentage of lifetime values, trying to get certain kind of positive ROI. So it could be some specificness on that. It could be about teams and your hiring in terms of your funding, as I mentioned, and also financial revenue milestones, right? So how much are you making, or if you want, in terms of how much you're fundraising. So there's a couple of examples here just to denote. You don't need to show like 5 different or 3 different kind of milestones on your presentation, your pitch. You could combine a few so that in one time series, you see a little bit of everything, but just enough of what the investor needs to know. As in, is the product going okay? Are they getting people on board? I think that's the tool that we want to see in this initial point of time. In terms of hiring people and fundraising, not much activities there for an early stage company. So this is what it will look like eventually, that kind of assignment we want you to work on. So don't worry about it. I'm not asking you to do it right now. But we want to know what kind of business model you're working on and what kind of revenue model. And then in terms of milestone category, I think we'll denote that, let's track this tool for everyone. In terms of product, your platform, what is the milestones you're going to set in the next 6 months? And in terms of customer, what does the growth looks like in the next 6 months? So these boxes vertically going down, I want you to basically just specify what do you think the sub milestones are, and then the last one is that final thing. So whether you want to launch a certain product, launch a certain feature, get a certain kind of number of users on board, or get a certain number of customers on board. So of course, be a bit more practical. So just list this out there. This is something you're going to draw into your pitch next later on. The one on the extreme right-hand side that says top 3 metrics, we haven't come to that yet. So that's going to be something you keyed in later. We'll talk about that later. But in this case, I want you to just think about, what does success look like for you 6 months down the road, and what will it take to achieve that in 6 months? That's what a milestone basically looks like. So that's something you'll have to do eventually on your own. That's in the particular workbook. We're not doing it now, so don't worry. So you want to make sure those things are done. Okay, so that was basically the business model topic itself. I'm just gonna jump into the next topic here about startup metrics. Okay, so once you have the milestones done, then you need to go a little bit more deeper. I mean, how do you know if you're achieving those particular milestones, right? So that's what metrics are for. Metrics are going to be used to track and know whether your rate of achieving the milestones is on track. Are you hitting it? Are you there yet? Are you there yet? That kind of questions itself. So for every particular type of milestone, there's a various type of metric that could be used to analyze, like for getting your products out there, getting more customers in terms of marketing, different kind of metrics or keywords you would use to measure. We saw some of it as we spoke about the business model. So we jumped the gun and showed you some things like net presence score. You saw things like coefficient of the virality. So those are kind of metrics that we spoke about. But this is not something brand new just for the startup world. I think metrics are there from the beginning of time in terms of how marketers track how good things are going in terms of marketing, not just social media, but it could also be very offline kind of engagements, things like how many people saw my ad, what is the impressions, what's the click-through rates. Sales team will have different kind of metrics in terms of tracking between opportunities and leads. So, what's an opportunity and what's a lead? So very, very industry terminologies from back then, and that's still something basically track right now. Executives will look very big picture financial metrics itself. They want to know things. So all this will help you track for accountability, right? So this is something that as a founder, you should basically make sure that your team knows what are you tracking. So if you noticed in your lean canvas, there's one little section there called key metrics. The whole idea why it's under solution is to figure out if this is the problem, I'm building this as a solution. Key metrics is how do you know if this solution is doing well? How do you know if your solution works? What are you monitoring, measuring to make sure you're moving towards the right path? So is it growth of users, growth of customers, getting a certain kind of products, features out there? Is it about getting certain kind of partnerships out there, certain kind of retentions out there, number of downloads? So you need to know those particular factors. So of course, it's easily said and done. You could say like, hey man, I'm just a PowerPoint presentation right now. I don't even have a product. What kind of metrics are you asking me to basically track now? It's hard, especially if you want to say track revenue. I don't even have a product. What revenue are you talking about? So the main problems with getting metrics in early stages, you don't have a product, or product might even be wrong. We're still trying to do validation at this point of time, right? There's little or no usable data. Some of your data points will contradict. I mean, your survey, some of you have 8 responses, 7. I've seen a lot that's 50 and above. But even the 50 and above, sometimes you have to just make sure that, am I seeing a certain segment of people key in that particular survey, or is it a broad range of people from different segments keying in the survey? How do you know that data points are correct? So you start seeing there's some kind of contradicting kind of data points that come out of your survey, then you go like, I think these are not the same people from the same group answering this itself. So be careful of that, right? Different kind of external traffic could just come in and mess up your insights. You won't know what's actionable or if you're on the right track. There's a lot of guessing that you have to do, but it's part of the game, right? To take some kind of intelligent guesses, some kind of educated guesses when you basically make these choices. And hence why we're here to help you try and navigate what we've seen before. Like you said, we don't know all the answers, but we know what didn't work in the past with certain companies, certain startups we invested in. And we can tell you what happened in early stage in the other teams that you don't want to repeat. So early stages metrics, you don't focus on certain kind of vanity. So you try and focus on people. That means don't worry so much about how many page view you have, how many visits you have, how many hits you have. I've got 25 likes or 300 likes on my Facebook page. Not really that important. But even if you have 5 people on your Facebook page, the 5 people were giving you such great insights of what they like or what they don't like about your particular startup, that's already gold. The fact that they found you, they spoke to you, and it's sharing with you, that's the kind of insights you basically want. Very qualitative, right? So focus on the customer's feedback. That's more important. What they're saying versus what they're doing. You want to denote that 2 differences itself. Did they really use the app? Are they saying they did it? Or did you see that behavior in that particular app itself, right? So try and validate all these particular kind of internal opinions. What do they believe and what do they know? So a lot of stuff are gut feelings, but you want to try and get to that root cause to know whether it's this gut feel or this is really what they know. So all this is very qualitative as you do at the beginning. Hence we stress that surveys and the interviews is the key part, right? The surveys, they'll just tell you what, sometimes they want to tell you what you want to hear. But when you get to a face-to-face interview, you can really validate that opinions to figure out, are they just saying that, probe a few more why questions on top of that and see whether they're really coming back to that root cause of what they're telling you. So this is an easy way to kind of highlight the understanding of how metrics is used from the different kind of products itself, or the different kind of stages of product itself. So some of you will be in this blue bar here, right? Pre-product. So whatever you're doing here is very qualitative to begin with. So your core activities would be things about interviews and community development. So something we want to stress, I think this Thursday is, how do you start building that community? How many of you already have a Facebook page? I mean, I don't need to be telling you to do that, but you should be doing that yourself. Have a Facebook page to talk about this upcoming product. How do you not have it as a Facebook page about your product itself, but about the subject matter? So can you see if there's a following and there's enough people that is excited to talk and share about that particular area that you're trying to solve, right? So you try not to focus too much about product development over here. It's about market development first and seeing if the numbers make sense. The people are talking about the solution that you aspire to build correctly based on your understanding. So how do you measure things at this point of time? Well, again, since it's very qualitative, I want to know things like, how many calls did you make? How many communities did you reach out? When you make those particular calls, How many of them hit that particular customer profile you thought you were going to hit? How many of the customer profiles were really a customer, or your non-customer profiles were basically turning out to be your customers, like in your sense? Some of you said that. So do they like your solution? Do they don't like your solution? So you need all these data points then to say, like, you know what, we're on the right track. Let's go a little bit more. So that a little bit more what we're going to be talking about either by Thursday or next week is getting towards that MVP. So MVP is called your minimum viable product. As in, what's as little as we need to create to put the product out there so that they can still experience the gist of what we're doing. We may not have all the bells and whistles, may not look amazing, but ideally, it does what they need to basically get done. So in this case, if you want to get married, what's the bare minimum you need to put out there? A few locations, look for a venue, a few people to plan it, a few people to run it, a couple of vendors to basically take the photos and the photog and maybe the flower arrangement. So a few things that can just start and see what kind of behaviors then come aboard the product and how do they engage with the particular services there. So for output base, the core activities is you're going to try some product development. You're going to try and get people on board your product. So there's some kind of customer acquisition that needs to be done. But one thing that we don't try and do here is cost optimization of acquisition. So I'm not saying that, don't simply spend your money. I'm saying spend some money, maybe do some kind of Facebook ads, some kind of Google ads, because the whole part now is trying to learn, right? You want to see what works, what doesn't work. How does Facebook ads compared to Google ads works for your particular industry? What was the cost of acquisition without any optimization straight off the bat? Was it more expensive? Was it already affordable? But if you start now trying to tweak your Facebook ads, tweak your Google ads, I don't know what's your basis of you tweaking it, because you have not even run a particular business. You don't even know what to make efficient yet. You may over-engineer and optimize the wrong things, and it might bite you in your butt later on itself. So just try and maybe do some ads and see how things work, get the gist of it, get the flow of it going. But optimization comes later on itself. So at this point of time, the kind of metrics you look at in terms of your KPIs would be, what are my daily active users? If I'm starting to pay to get people on board, how many of them come every particular day? What kind of money do they spend? Could we get them to part with some money already? Is there some kind of monthly recurring revenue now? Is there some kind of gross merchandise volume? Are we seeing certain kind of sales of products already on the platform? So there's a few things we want to try and track. And then once the MVP sort of is done, and how do you know it's done is when we start seeing organically people come in, there's some kind of referrals of people to other people coming in that was non-customers, and the spending continues. There's some kind of consistent recurring revenue, and then you go like, oh, that's interesting. It's time to step on the gas a little bit more. So post MVP, this is where it's a good time to try and raise some funds. This could be a seed fund or something like that. It won't be a Series A, of course. So when you're getting towards the product launch, you want to do a few things. One is to figure out all the people that came in the past, do they come back now? So maybe now we can start thinking of some form of optimization here and there. How do you improve that experience so who came before and spent will come back again? So that's when you're getting towards that product market fit, right? So because you also got some kind of funding that basically come in, don't get excited. Don't start blowing all the money and over hiring people. Keep the money, because you want to make sure from now till when you basically raise the next round, how long can you last based on the milestones, and how much can you get done? You want to make sure the product is working well. The product can keep the customers coming in, staying in, and keep purchasing itself. So for every dollar you're spending now, you're getting more output rather than a dollar for just a dollar of output itself. So the KPIs here look into things like conversion rates, right? For every dollar you're spending now, you want to start thinking about optimizations. I want to get more out of it, bang out of my buck. How do I increase the conversion rates? How do I make sure that if I'm spending to get people on board, which is called the customer acquisition costs, the ratio of that to my lifetime value is basically maybe 3x. That means if I spend 10 ringgit to get you onto my platform, can I make 30 ringgit from you? There's got to be a certain multiple on top of the customer acquisition costs. So that's important. So I'm just going to do a brain dump of types of startup metrics. I'm not going to go through it all. This is taken online. You can find this and read up about this stuff. But some common ones that maybe I'll focus on, like MRR, when you see these keywords, that's monthly recurring revenue. That's how much you're steadily making on the top level every particular month. Annual recurring revenue is ARR, and then average revenue per account. So it's a number of customer, how much they would spend is ARPA. Gross profit, obviously, that's obvious. The other things is lifetime value. So you might sometimes see CLV, customer lifetime value is the same thing. It's basically the same itself. Customer acquisition cost, the CAC. Customer concentration risk, that's interesting. So that's when you have a couple of customers on your platform that you're very dependent on. So these are like your whales, right? A few people spend a lot of money on your platform and you're dependent on them. So that's a risk that what if this customer goes away, what happens? So for maybe enterprise deals, government deals coming in, and you're so focused on a few key accounts, then you have that risk of, that threat of you losing that revenue stream from just a single customer segment. So be careful of that. Daily active users, just talk about how many times a certain number of people are there on your particular site that given time. Similar version for a whole duration of a month would be monthly active users. That's basically that. The other one we talk about sometimes is churn rate. So when is the customer lost? When do they basically leave and don't come back? So you want to know your churn rate itself. Oh, this is also another interesting one, retention. That's basically how many customers are coming back. So retention goes by what we call cohorts. So I could say, show me the retention of your product for 30 days, or let's say 14 days. So what happens now is, if I say a 30-day retention, I want to know how many people that were there on day one when they first got into your product is still there in day 30. So what is that particular number? So sometimes retention is gone on a weekly basis, so a 7-day, a 14-day, or could even be a 30-day retention. So your role is to figure out, how do I make my product so sticky so people keep coming back? So depending on your kind of product that you have, the way you do your messaging, the way you have content, people only come if there's something brand new. So you want to keep the site fresh. Or if the product is something I need all the time, then I keep coming back. But if it's like a insurance app, or it's something that only reminds me of something I do once a year, then it doesn't even need to be an app. It's very hard to have someone install that on a phone or focus on a product only when they need it. But on the other times, they just won't care. So you got to know what kind of product you're building, and can you engineer some kind of retention in. We'll speak more about this when we talk about the marketing chapter. The next is virality. So that's the viral coefficient. So the average number of invitations sent by existing user. So again, this one can be engineered. The idea is, how do you make it in such a way that somebody wants to share and bring more people into your particular product? So you would have seen things like PayPal when it first started, they started throwing money. So every user you sign up, you introduce, you get a certain number of dollars. I think Dropbox did the same in terms of giving you more disk space to store things. So what could you do in terms of getting someone to do that? But virality also still only works if someone likes the product. No one will shout about a product they don't like, even though there might be some kind of benefits out of it. Maybe cash they would still do would be the pseudo virality thing you're trying to create, but it won't go that far. So that's something to think about. So organic traffic, of course, would be traffic coming in from unpaid ads. I mean, from search directly to you. Inorganic traffic, that will basically be more of someone buying ads and it's coming to you. So that's some of the metrics that's out there. I know there's a lot for you to basically listen to, but the slides are there, the video's there, so pick it up whenever you need to know more about your industries. We made it easy for you. We're going to go deeper into what's the minimum bare metrics you would see, what are the universal keywords you need to know by certain kind of verticals of businesses out there, what are commonly looked at. So, it's coming up next. There's a few of those things. So one thing to stress on is the concept of metrics can be classified as vanity and clarity. So you can always tell, if a startup is doing well, or they're trying to fake it when they do a pitch, depending on what they talk about, right? So vanity metrics is very surface level. It's the large numbers they'll talk about, but it doesn't mean much. It's just to impress you because there's a large digit on it, but it doesn't really mean much, right? So an example is how many page views you had. It's always going to be sometimes big, but how long did it stay on your particular site? That could be clarity, right? Because the bounce rate could be super huge. So a lot of people came there, but they weren't really be really looking at your site. If you told me your session engagement was longer, then it's a little bit more detailed. So that's more what we call clarity. It's a bit more going deeper a bit. Let's talk about some examples to get an idea. So we talk about marketplaces. So vanity sometimes could be not just how much they buy, but it could tell you the amount of product that's on the platform. So at any given time, this is the total GMV on the platform. Not even how much is sold, but just talk about the sheer amount of product value that's on the platform. So if they talk about how much they buy, then maybe it's a little bit more. But again, how much of this money goes to you, how much goes to the particular seller. So clarity would be more interesting as in how often do they buy? So if you can show me, even though your numbers are small, but people come back more than once, or even better, more than once a month to buy another product, that shows there's some stickiness in your particular marketplace, right? So you want to get towards that level of detail. For advertising, yeah, you could have impressions, but impressions as you scrolling on Facebook will also show that people viewed our particular content. But how many people really worked with the content, activated the content, went into the content, that's a whole different thing. So that's when you want to look at the CPAs, cost per action, or plus click-through rates itself. So they actually clicked and did something, some kind of action on top of the videos or the ads. For typical softwares like apps, people are always trying to do vanity based on number of downloads. But these days, the downloads don't mean much. A lot of people just download to see your app and then they go, oh, but this is not for me. That doesn't mean you're a customer anymore. So what's interesting then for softwares and apps would be session durations or active engagement minutes, how long people spend on a certain session. But if you can also then talk about retention here, makes sense. So if I downloaded the app today, am I still on the app 7 days later, 14 days later, 30 days later? So what's a good number? That's very subjective. If you can get double digits like 25, I think that's quite amazing to get a good retention that way itself, as in 25%. So some minimal viable metrics to basically keep in touch with, something along the categories of these 4 broad ones, something around retention, something about monetization, something about engagement, something about virality. Now virality may be not for everyone, but these are some of the key metrics you just want to make sure you have at the back of the mind and typically look at. So it could be something like this, right? So I don't talk about virality here because it's not really for everyone. That would be mainly the coefficient basically. So for retention, you want to know how often do people use my product? So great to see daily active users, that the people always there on your products all the time. Daily new users, you want to see if there's new people also coming in. And of course, then if you have enough data and you use proper analytical software, you can figure out the actual retention by cohort. So Google Analytics, Firebase Analytics, a few other products out there have these beautiful reports that will tell you if this person's day 1, after 14 days, what was the chances they were still there? What's the percentage of the people that were still there after that particular time cycle itself? So you can have all that graphs done for you. In terms of engagement metrics, that's more how long do people use my products? So things like average session duration, average session length means the same thing. And then some kind of monetization metrics. So this is going to be a bit more difficult for you because you may be very pre-revenue, but you'll want to start aiming towards tracking these things eventually. So no harm putting it in now, but the numbers are 0, but don't get demotivated seeing that numbers are 0 for the next few weeks, obviously. So straightforward would be revenue, things like conversion rate. So there's a lot of people coming to your site and then you want to see whether they can be converted from a user to a paying customer. That'll be great. Or in terms of certain kind of apps and software, we look at the ARPU, the average revenue per user. Sometimes it's always the other one, average revenue per paying user itself. So out of all the people paying, what's the average rather than this? The number could be skewed if you have a big user base that not everyone pays and the number looks quite small. So that's some basic metrics or keywords you should know about and try and think about tracking. So if you basically put it onto a couple of the different kind of revenue models out there, let's say e-commerce, what's common in terms of a metric used for this particular sectors itself? So for e-commerce, you always track things like returning customer, percentage of shopping cart abandonment itself. That's something you always want to keep track of. How much shopping cart is abandoned, because there's an opportunity there to try and recover that and get back some particular income. Virality, you want to look at The cost of acquisition for sure, because how expensive it is to acquire someone in that particular sense, and then how many shares are created and what's the revenue for these different traffic sources. So if you're acquiring them from various different channels, you want to see which particular traffic source brings you the most. In terms of revenue, very transaction based, and opportunities talks about what's the average basket size, how much is the average order value at the moment. So for each particular kind of model here, we look at different kind of metrics being used for them. So find your appropriate, well, you'll have the gut feel of knowing what you want to know about your customer, right? So for software as a service, in terms of how long they engage with a particular product, what's the churn rate? So if I subscribe for a monthly like Zoom account, what they would be watching right now is, are people using Zoom as a monthly basis or annual plan? Like, would lead continue subscribing to Zoom after 30 days of usage and they finish running an accelerator? Do I continue paying Zoom and run another batch with it, or go, I don't want to use Zoom anymore, I want to find something else? So they'll be worried about that, the churn rate, right? How do they make it sticky for us and stuff. Chances are they're not doing a good job with that. In terms of revenue, that's always the upselling. So that's what they're doing right now, and we had to basically go through that. They made it seem that when you can have 100 people on your particular call, and if you needed more, I can't go to 200, I can't go to 300. I have to upsell, and right, they had to upsell me. I had to buy 500 people itself and pay a lot more extra. So that's basically some of the interesting ways they would think about creating a product and selling it to people in certain situations. Not the best way, but that's how they would track the metrics itself. So I'm not going to read everything off the slide. That's there for you to basically look at. In terms of online marketplaces, you want to see how many active listings there are. There's always listings, but how many of them are active, made some changes or fresh? How many of active sellers and engaged buyers? So that's things to track. If not, people could just say, I've got 3,000 sellers, but the last time these people ever sold anything was in day one when they basically registered. In fact, maybe they didn't even sell anything, they just registered. So active means they have a product actively right now that's being sold. And then in terms of online media, this will be people like SAYS and any kind of entertainment-based site. They'll always keep track of page views usually. So now you want to go a little bit more deeper to figure out daily users, returning customers, whether they're organic or inorganic traffic, how many people are seeing certain kind of articles, if it's a paid article, how many shares are coming in, because all these kind of data points that help them get more advertising revenue and sell the rate cards higher itself. So the opportunities is the kind of user demographics they have, they will sell that kind of data analytics to people who want to advertise on it. So some particular terminologies from the metrics world that you need to understand for startups would be a few things like this. This is the golden rule I would say everyone needs to follow. The one formula to rule them all: lifetime value, which would mean customer lifetime value, should always be more than the customer acquisition cost. I mean, this is just pure logic. If they don't spend more than you spend to get them into your platform, that's how you basically run a startup into the ground. So what's a good number? Usually we talk about at least 3 times, as in the customer value should be at least 3 times of the customer acquisition cost. That's more palatable, I would say. If you can then also promise to recover your cost of acquisition less than a year, less than 12 months, then you know that it's a bit more manageable itself. You don't want a business to require too much capital to grow. That's kind of fundamentally wrong. So we covered some of them. So a couple more that basically you need to know. Of course, we did customer acquisition cost. So that's the formula, how you do that. So customer acquisition cost is not just how much you spend on Facebook ads, it's just how much you spend in totality. So we're talking about sales and marketing costs, including your overheads, right, for a given period. That's the real number you're going to see, how much is being spent to acquire a customer. So don't just say I spend 5 ringgit on Facebook, I got 5 customers, it's 1 ringgit per. Nope, it's still your opportunity of the person, the salary of the person. There's so many things to talk about to calculate when you say that that's the cost of acquiring a customer itself. Retention rate, we spoke about. How long is someone still on a platform after a given duration? Churn rate is when they basically fall off and don't be a customer anymore. So that could be a given rate itself. Normally we'll just say what's the monthly churn rate. Burn rate is more what investors will be interested in terms of how much are you spending in your day-to-day operations itself. This could be your overheads, which include salaries and infrastructure costs, technology costs. lifetime value, and all forms of revenue-based metrics. These are some of the key ones you should know because that's the common ones you're going to see speaking about in books and in presentations, and just have that wrapped around your head. So let's just pause a little bit so I can take a breath and maybe sip a glass of water, and let's do some exercises. Let's do a case study so I can have some kind of interaction going on, and making sure all that people that's tuned in right now were actually paying attention. So let's do this. So Says is definitely a social news company and everyone's heard of. They do all these kind of viral kind of stories out there. They do what, about 4.5 million views or unique audiences every particular month itself. And of course, their revenue model is primarily advertisements. So if you were running Says, if you're a founder there, you're part of the strategic team over there, what would be important for you to track? What were the metrics you would basically want to keep track of to know that Says is doing all right? Web traffic, bounce
Page
back,
views.
and shares. Okay, all right, some good ones there. So yeah, definitely a few of those things you said. So engagement, definitely, in terms of, you know, how often are someone liking and sharing and commenting, because they're very much this whole viral kind of style of marketing, right? That's what they try to achieve. They try and get towards the younger people to share and talk about the stories, and that was the premise when they first started. The more you share, the more you get paid. But now it's a little bit more different. So that principle is still there. So they want to see how many likes and shares and comments they get from an article, so they can report back, of course, to the advertiser itself, like, you know, you're getting that kind of eyeballs, that kind of PR value of something. But in reality, they want to see, you know, which one goes and breaks away into a runway success and gets a little bit more shares than the usual. And of course, the customer concentration risk is there too. Since their main form of revenue is advertisers, they have to know whether they're depending on a certain kind of profile of the customer that is too heavily dependent on for revenue stream. So they want to make sure that they can engage with content that is cross discipline in terms of verticals that will give them money. Yeah, so usually it's going to be very organic. First, sometimes you need the inorganic to have the tipping point to push the organic growth from there too. So Crave, that's another example let's do. So Crave is one of our portfolios here. Homemade product marketplace with traditional homemade chefs selling directly to consumers. So they do mostly artisanal snacks, not really full meals. So their revenue comes from a percentage of every sales close. So very commission-based, transaction-based itself. So if you're a product like this, you're a commerce product, you're selling products for people, figuring out the logistics and everything in between, and you take a commission per transaction, what would you be tracking to make sure you're doing all right? Okay, GMV, number of returning customers. New users, gross profits, okay, anything else? Average revenue, all right, how much the basket size per person, yep, orders per customers, and okay, very good, everyone's paying attention, I like that. So here's just some of it, of course, there's some 4 here. One is to just make sure on a day-to-day basis they're hitting their particular targets, so they track daily revenue. They want to make sure, I think somebody mentioned this, whether people come back and buy again. So you want to see some kind of repeat purchase rate. So retention is definitely important, but not just retention in terms of them coming back to the site. They've got to come back and spend. So I want to see some kind of repeat purchase rates. Because they do a lot of ads online, so there's a customer acquisition cost that they always got to keep their eye on. And because they have customer acquisition costs and they are buying and they're coming back, they want to make sure that how do they ensure that the lifetime value can be stretched and made to be a little bit more as much as possible so that the ratio can be more than 3x itself. So these will be some of the things that they would to keep an eye on as a marketplace. So using this kind of examples and what we learned in the past, have that at the back of your mind, right? Like what are going to be your milestones coming forward and what are the metrics you want to see basically happen? Of course, that's an ideal situation yeah, with the COVID situation happening, I think someone asked that, would these milestones get diluted? I think in terms of product development, it should not. In fact, this should be the best time to build products if you have the entire product team with you. You're not a one-man show, then there's nothing that's going to distract you from building products. What's going to be a distraction is if you can convince people to want your product. But having said that, I mean, I can share some of our numbers, like, no, I wouldn't say specific numbers, but one of our other food startups, we found that with they've been consistently always doing 6 digits of sales, but the 6 digits of sales had very different revenue streams. But in the last month, because of the current MCO, they still hit their 6 digits of sales with lesser revenue streams. So it shows that, you know, people are still out there buying products. The fact that people are still going out there buying, worried whether there's a Ramadan bazaar or not, people are still having their needs to be kind of solved, right? So I don't think so. You have to worry too much about it. What you have to worry is that approach that you thought of initially still going to work for you if it was very face to face, very offline? What is the alternative you could do now to figure that out? So that's something you have to work on. So trying to map it back with the funnel. So we haven't spoke about funnels yet, but I want to bring that up here. So everyone's heard of this pirate framework. I call it pirate because it's like R, the pirate. Never mind, I regret doing that in a video. So the R framework stands for that AAARR thing. So the first one is acquisition. So this is, let me just go through the list. So acquisition is how customers find you. How do they know you exist? So you got to bring them into the funnel, right? That's called acquisition. Activation is when you want to make them do something so that they have that moment of aha, or just have that moment that they engage with you a little bit more longer. So this is where someone comes to your website, they read your kind of offerings, they go like, oh, that's interesting. I will like your page. So on Instagram, I will follow you so I could keep seeing more posts from you. Or if it's a website, then usually what they do is, I want to know more. I will give you an email so I can subscribe to your newsletter. So that's kind of like activation. We'll speak more about this, and there's a beautiful website, I think it's called useronboard.com, that talks about all the different ways you could basically learn from other platforms doing this real well. So once someone comes in, they're activated, you have their database. The idea is now I want them to buy something, but people will not buy straight away. It's akin to you walk into a departmental store and you want to look about, right? So you don't want someone to keep following you wherever you walk in the aisles and saying, you want to buy this, you want to buy that. So you may walk off and you will come back again a few times. So how do I get someone to come back into my store? The fact that they come back shows that they're interested, but just maybe not tipping over to buy it right now. If they like something real well, they can also tell their friends, they can bring other people along with them next time they want to come back to the store. And then the final one is when, if they go through the funnel properly, they finally decide to part some of their hard-earned dollars with you and bring you some of the revenue. So sometimes you'll see this R framework may switch the last two, where it goes from retention, it goes to revenue, and then because they bought something, they love the experience, they'll tell your friends. So you see that two variations out there itself. So when you have this particular framework in terms of a funnel, the two most interesting things is, try to determine intent. So I could say I bring someone into my platform, yes, but whether they intend to or not, and then what happens after they purchase, how do you know, did you fulfill that particular customer intent? There's no metrics for that because that's very qualitative. So you'll never find a metrics that those things. So this is where customer interviews, or in your case, surveys basically make sense. I could do surveys to figure out what is the issue and what triggered them to come to that particular location to buy. And then after post-purchase buying it, how did they like the experience, whether they want to come back again. So this is something that you see in most applications these days. Towards the end, after you buy, they'll always try and force you to do a ratings and review and try and get your particular feedback on the product for a seller, for a buyer, even Uber and Grab. At one point in time, initially, they tried to force you to basically make that ratings and reviews, because that helped the next person get acquired into the platform when they can see trust and see a score. Right now, you can opt not to do that because it just works already. So that's the reason why you want to do that. So if we start now looking at in terms of how this metrics and framework works for a product, let's say for Spotify. So acquisition, activation, retention, referral, revenue. So acquisition is, them creating a Spotify account on your particular platform. Then when someone creates that, not everyone jumps into a premium customer straight away. So if you talk about milestone, you want to get them to pay, right? So the idea is, how do I get them to keep coming back? So in terms of retention, some kind of metrics you can check. I want them to listen to 100 songs in 5 days. I want them to basically do a certain kind of things you could quantify. So in this case, this is what Spotify is doing at the back, trying to figure out, would you be listening every day, or can you listen to a number of songs? And then if you do that, could you then at least come back 1 hour per week? So they will look into their week active users. So another reason why they want to make sure this kind of numbers is, if you're a free customer, you know how many times you'll be listening to the annoying advertisement they have? So that's going to be that point where they go, if you could come in this consecutive times and listen to this many songs, you will hit the ads this many times. And that will be an internal number they have to basically say, it's going to trigger someone to do something, either go buy or just leave the platform itself. So they might make them do more things like, I want to share songs with friends. I've never done this ever in my life, but you straight away jump from retention after playing Spotify freemium for the longest time, especially if you try and play it for your baby to go to sleep and then a stupid ad comes in, you would switch to being a Spotify premium customer immediately when he wakes up. So you'll upgrade. So they have a funnel that basically makes sense of this. And this is something that we will speak more at the end. I just want to show you what the metrics and framework at the back of your mind looks like when you put two and two together. Okay, so the key metrics comes back to your lean canvas and this particular column here, right under the solution. So that's basically how you know your business is doing well. So in this case, for the wedding example, what we were looking at is in terms of the website traffic. So I want to look at daily active users, maybe also daily new users. I want to know whether there are new faces coming in all the time. And then, of course, to make sure that the business is doing well, we look at revenue metrics. So things like sales conversion rates. So when people come into the site, what's the conversion of them to a paid customer? What's the average revenue per visitor? And a few different things like that. So you want to make sure key metrics is there by now. The cost structure is there, basically where your overheads are, and also revenue streams. So you're getting towards a more complete lean canvas right now. The only thing that's missing is channels, and that's going to be done basically, I think, next week. So call to action, we've done milestones already. What we want you to work on is, how do you have the milestones along with the metrics being determined of what you want to track in the next 6 months for your particular startup. Okay, I'm going to pause here for now. There's just one more short topic, but I see the chats going on. So anything interesting here I should jump on? Max, Kavita, let me know.
I think one question that, wait, it's Q&A now, right?
Yeah, there's a short one. Yeah.
So I think one question they asked, right? When tracking metrics, should they take into account the whole COVID situation right now? Or should they be planning something totally different?
What does that mean? What do you mean by take into consideration the COVID metrics? how would COVID help
because
them?
people can't leave their house to enter my cafe, for example. Should I just put
Yeah.
first
So
three?
if it's honestly going to be a brick and mortar offline thing, as I mentioned just now, then yes, it does. But you as a business owner now, you'd want to be more resilient in terms of the future, right? So why would you want to build something short-term only for the MCO? So you want to make sure that, how would I address this if this ever happens again? But it's not about a lockdown. It's about what happens in the next very long break for some reason, as a long holiday or something like that. How would you still have a business model that operates during these long pauses, long silences, compared to just having a daily hustle bustle itself? So it shouldn't take into that as a consideration at all. It should just be a business model that from now on just usually works. So hence why you see a lot of people going more online, more digital, more D2C, D2C and things like that. If your supply chain is truly affected, then this is the moment you want to start brainstorming. How would you make a more risk adverse supply chain, isn't it? That's the whole idea with this situation, to make tweaks in your business model so that it will work in a COVID situation again. So it happens again, you're okay. But if it doesn't happen again, you're still okay. Have that in mind. Build and adapt to that situation. the main thing now with doing online, I mean, it's recording, but guys, just make sure you edit this off the thing. I just got some interesting stats yesterday. You know, the government was trying to push that whole thing about getting SMEs to be more digital and spend money online, and get into digital services. And then government, I wouldn't say the agency's names, but they were scrambling to get as many vendors to list all their particular digital services. And they tried to make sure that you needed at least 100 customers on your digital platform before to prove that you're worthy, and they'll bring it all to the local SMEs. So they scrambled and they got the list and they put it out there. And then yesterday I found out total SMEs that use this particular benefit, this was part of the budget. But it could be because of the situation too, right? You're supposed to spend 5,000 and the government gives you another 5,000 rebate of services on, which means the startup or the vendors get paid that 5,000 ringgit itself. Five people, five people, five SMEs out of the 700,000 amazing SMEs in this country decided to use that particular service. So yeah, so that could just be because they had to spend 5,000 for a product that maybe couldn't be used in this span of a lockdown for them. Like you needed to maybe buy a accounting system or payroll system or a point of sale system. But if you know your services are not running for the next 1 month or so, why would they do that? So that's a situation where it didn't work out well. But I guess the vendors directly have not said that they have not had businesses and they're still finding ways to sell the product. But just oddly, that particular benefit that the government thought they were putting was not taken up as much as they thought. That could just be because of that initial amount they made you spend. I think that also that wasn't right. Could you get a POS system and those systems below 10,000 ringgit? For sure. So why would I have to spend 5,000 to get 5,000 worth on top when that product could be got at a cheaper value from somewhere else? So I think that was just bad planning on their effort. But again, this is just for you to know, and we'll just make sure we edit that off the video. Should you run retention campaigns immediately after, even if the focus of new customer acquisitions, you have 3 months? Well, when you say retention campaigns, as in you want to do that little tracker that keeps following people, I think maybe not so much, because that's going to be expensive. That ad amount can go quite far. So if you start early, you normally just target precisely who you really want. And if they don't seem to be your customer initially because you're targeting your early adopters and you're testing your hypothesis, there's no point having these ads track them everywhere and convince them if they weren't the right person to convince. So you'll end up spending too much money on someone you don't know. So always try and get the customers early, organically as possible, so that you have that base of who these people should be. And then you can do those kind of gimmicks with Facebook by looking at lookalike audience, etc. You would know how to target more people using that demographics that you basically have figured it out. But if you have too much money, go ahead. You can spend right now, but try not to so early.
So one last short question, right? So I think you were mentioning previously the first phase, especially when you're a really new startup, your metrics are more qualitative rather than quantitative, right?
Correct.
So for some people who's reached out to their customers and they haven't received any response from them, how would you ask them to go ahead with that?
Well, if you want to just keep moving, you got to make some assumptions. So just be prepared to pivot back again. So that's where some people were asking me, my customers have not replied. But if you think that's still a way for you to do a survey and get more insights from your users, if there is a too clear distinction among them, then that could help. Like in terms of the, what's his name was trying to work on the counterfeiting product blockchain solution. If you can't get those kind of companies to reply your surveys right now, but you can find out market sentiments in terms of what are people's concerns when they buy certain products right now, right? Especially in the rise of e-commerce marketplaces, etc. How are they sure when you go on Carousel and someone say this is a second-hand Coach bag, they are sure that this is a second Coach bag? What did they do to make sure it's authenticity? How many people have get conned before? So now you're helping yourself get access to more data points to make a more valid case when you talk back to the consumers, the customers, and tell Mr. whatever he is that owns the license to sell Coach here, basically that, do you know out of all your customers who buy this secondhand, this is your concern. Since this is your brand, you may still want to protect people in the secondhand market. Here's my data to prove that, and here's my solution. So you may have to do a little bit more running around to basically get towards what you want at the end of the day at the beginning. So long story short, there's more work for you to do now. Any more?
If there's any pressing question, you can probably repost it again. Else, maybe you can proceed to the next section.
Okay, so what's the time? Okay, 1 minute to 4. Okay, so we just got a little bit more. This won't take more than 15 minutes, I think. All right, so the last part that we're covering today is on revenue models. So revenue models, as I mentioned, is a sort of a subset of a business model itself. So it's how you're going to make some income, how you're going to get people to give you money. So example is, transactional means like it's a revenue model where I'm going to charge people per transaction. I'm going to take a commission. But if I want to say I want money recurring all the time, then there's a way to say, how do we charge the customer every month? So that will be the revenue model. I want to get money from the customer every single month, but the customer will still be the same business model in terms of this is the B2C approach. I'm getting the end customers to pay me every month. But it could also be a B2B approach where other businesses are paying you every single month. So the revenue model here is the monthly recurring payments. And this could be called a subscription model itself. So the subscription model then could be entailed in a few different ways. I could say subscription, it's very high tech from a software as a service principle, but subscription model could also be that it's very low tech. I'm just saying you pay me 20 bucks or 50 bucks every month. I send you a plastic bag full of vegetables. That's as low tech as you can get. But it's still same. It's a subscription. It's a recurring payment. It happens monthly. So that's what we mean by the different kind of revenue models out there. So you'll see revenue models from a commerce perspective. There is things like affiliate, where you get other people to sell for you. So this can borderline say that it's also very marketing rather than revenue models. But we'll speak about affiliate models later on. Could be a transactional, as I mentioned, a subscription. And there's one that everyone always asks, like, advertisement. This is a revenue model. Does it work for everyone? Well, it works, but not for everyone, because you really need a huge audience for you to basically make advertisements in terms of dollar value making sense. If you are starting really early, you don't have a big user base, whether it's customer or users, but eyeballs in general coming to your site, then you're not going to make much from this. If you're thinking about selling the data and saying, I want to have this whole big data play, then again, you can have that at the back of your mind, but until you figure out what is that secret advantage you have to start at the beginning with a big chunk of data, or it's going to take you a long time to build that particular data itself, that might be too early. And it's very hard for someone as early as you then to put on a pitch deck, I have a big data model that's going to basically charge people and make money out of that when we've not seen anything come out of you yet. So be careful if you're talking about advertisements and the play with data. It's definitely powerful stuff, but it all depends on the team. We want to see the team has the right people behind it. There's data science background, there's some kind of actuarial people at the background, or you're partnering someone that leveraged will give you access to the data faster. If you don't have those things, then very, very far-fetched for us to believe that you have a big data model that basically will work. So let's talk about your revenue models itself, applied in very different ways. You could be building a very services-oriented business. And services-oriented business, here I got two examples, like a Service Hero or Made Easy, but there's so many others like a GoGet and all. The challenge here is it's very hard to scale this kind of businesses because they require people to deliver. But the other thing to realize is some of this kind of hard to scale companies are worth doing because it's hard. Not many people will do it. So you have now the ability to have this market to yourself. But what you have to figure out is how do you create a product in this particular service space? That means how much of these services can be productified? So you start building these interesting things that give you this unfair advantage on how you would recommend personnel to come on site to basically do this certain works. How much of what you've learned doing this manual process could actually be built as a tool for their day-to-day needs. And hence, if somebody else try to come in and compete, it's very hard for them to basically come in because you figure out some kind of unfair advantages for yourself. So what you'll be tracking in this kind of models then would be the revenues coming in from this particular kind of assignments or projects, the cost of delivering it, that's one of the big things there itself, because it's very people oriented. How do you know whether you could have right margins? How do you negotiate those particular margins? Because you're dealing with people. These people are also maybe trying to be part of a social enterprise, a very beneficiary based group of people. So trying to make sure you don't overstep your bounds and make them seem like they're getting below minimum wage is something you want to try and kind of stay away from. So all that point of time, trying to think about making the best margin for yourself so that something that's hard to scale and still make certain revenue is worth running this business. So very difficult. It's not for everyone. You see a few in the market, but you still see some previous names that started before that exist today that still looks like they're at the same stage and not really scaled beyond itself. And someone really big to pivot and come back into this, if they had a great foundation, would be easy. Like someone like Grab, the fact that have all the Grab drivers and riders already, for them to build a service business on top of it, that predisposed people who are not driving a car, riding a bike at that point of time, could basically go do something else. So you gotta be worried and keeping an eye on people like that who could just make little tweaks and offer what you're offering as a specific service. So of course, if it comes to repair plumbing and certain things which is so niched, maybe that's a little bit more easier. But then you're going to think about the total addressable market. How big is the total plumbing repairs in the country? How big is the total maid agency business in the country itself? So that's something to think about. So Made Easy was actually from Batch 1 Alpha Startups. It was started from a girl who was a consultant. She then got an angel investor that came for a demo day. He joined in, he loved it. He and his wife basically came into the business, and then she quit her job and she went back into consulting, and now that angel investor runs this as his own business. In terms of commerce, again, this commerce business models can still be B2B, B2C. B2B, B2C is very versatile. I think it works across all these days. What you want to look at from a key metrics angle will be the margins, the average basket size, and then just the cost of goods sold, right? Just to make sure, how do you play around with these few variables to make sure your margins are always quite nice. So this ones can mature into a marketplace. It can become a C2C that could grow really big, but tends to start off with a B2B, B2C approaches. It's a little bit more easier to control that. Then there's the whole commerce with D2C. We spoke about this. So to start a D2C, usually you won't have a big amount of things like a typical B2C or B2B commerce. Like if you go to Amazon and all these places, they've got thousands and thousands of SKUs. But D2C will normally try and keep it simple and saying, like, I'm just going to provide a few things to you directly. So in this case, for homegrown farms, we kept it really simple. We'll just say that $50 a week, subscription based, directly to you, a bag of vegetables, 3 kilos. What's inside it? I don't know. What I'm planting, what's growing this week, you're eating it this week. Home Taste, which is one of our other food startups, they do this for dinner subscriptions. So you just say that you want to have meals sent to you like or for a weekly basis or monthly basis, and you want dinner subscription. We will just cook whatever we want to cook, and then you just eat it. Because if I ask you what you want to eat, that's always been that hardest question to ask someone, right? So what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? So in this case, we don't ask you. We just send something to you, and you eat what we send to you. And they've been running close to 2 years, and we had some people on their subscription plan from day one till today and never turned it off. So that's quite interesting. So here it's always about conversion rates, someone who comes over to the site, how you convert them to be a customer. This is where you need to throw in some kind of trial coupon, some kind of discount initially, and then see if it triggers off to become standing customers. Margins, because you may want to negotiate if you have, but in terms of a distributor, there's not much margins here. It's more on how much you want to charge on top of that and how much you want to take itself. And then there's the engagement metrics, right? Or retention. How often do they come back? Do they stick on the subscription for long? Or even churn rate could be something you want to track in this case. When do they turn off? So subscription here, in this case, I'm speaking about subscription from a software as a service standpoint. So this would be like a Salesforce, a Spotify, or Netflix. So they keep track in terms of per user, what's the average revenue, because there's free and paid tiers usually. They want to know conversion from trial to purchase and churn rates. So when you build a very SaaS-based tool, the MVP is very hard to get done because you want someone to part with some money. It needs to do what the product says it will do. So the MVP sometimes cannot be enough, or sometimes it's just very, very challenging to figure out what's enough that it's bodily chargeable, but it's still rudimentary enough in terms of building something really quick. Like if you try to build an MVP for Spotify, what would it look like? Are you going to say that you only can stream 20 seconds, 40 seconds of a song because you don't have the bandwidth to do it? You don't have the licensing to bring all your catalogs, so you can't put every single song out there. So certain things you got to think about if you're trying to target enterprise customers like Salesforce. There's no room for that particular learning. So it's got to just work back at the beginning itself. But one thing good about that is these have the highest multiples in terms of them trying to sell this off or try and get some kind of valuation on that, because it's very forecastable revenue. There's a clear indication of how much is it on a per head basis. They can see your typical conversion rates. They can see how many free users and paid users are there. What's the potential of this basically growing? They can look at market trends and forecast how much more sales will come in. So great business to be in if you can build something like that. This is highly scalable because it's dependent just on infrastructure that's digital. So that'll be great. There's also subscription, which can be like, homegrown farms or those kind of people who do this little subscription boxes if you've seen. So it's a means of getting money from them on a regular basis, but it's not a software, it's still a service. So there's all these particular revenue models you're seeing, and they can be combined. That means I could have a subscription-based service business too that is B2C or B2B, right? I'm sending maids to companies to clean their offices, but I want to sign a yearly contract where you subscribe to it for a year minimum, and then people come on the site and they clean your particular offices itself. So it's not a SaaS-based tool. The MVP for this will be a bit more easier because it's about just putting someone over there cleaning your offices consistently and making sure that everyone's happy in terms of the quality of the product. Then there's the whole transactional fees or rental, you could basically say. Key metrics here would basically be average transaction revenue, fees per transaction, number of transactions, very obvious. Challenges for transaction fee businesses would be margins are small, so it has to be very efficient and you need a large volume. So depending on how much you can get away from margins, you need to figure out what that funnel will look like, how many more people you need to get in your funnel to make that margins really, really big. And the margins get smaller in terms of more the different kind of sectors you go in. So if you're trying to get into electronics and all, that's even more smaller than that. So one thing to remember is when you start off, try not to set your fees too low. You can always bring the fees lower eventually, but don't start low and then you can't go any lower. And people don't like it when you start making your prices go up, especially go up too soon. When it comes to marketplaces, this is not just B2B, B2C, there's also C2C for marketplaces too. Key metrics is the average transaction amounts, commissions, and number of transactions per month to see how healthy it is. The challenges would be for two-sided marketplaces, there's always a chicken and egg situation of which do you start first? So usually the question we always ask our startups is, which is harder? Always start with the harder one. So if the hardest is demand, go with that. Hardest is supply, go with that. So there's always this kind of critical mass that you need to basically have the tipping point, then things just work on its own. So you may have to doctor that market initially to make sure transactions are seen as happening. There's this whole lead generation kind of businesses you see these days where I think you've seen these two logos here, as I mentioned, where I'm kind of doing content marketing online, trying to do this kind of comparison-based websites, generating traffic to come in and read about items. And then when they're ready to buy, I will direct them to the best locations to buy things. And I get to charge a particular referral fee, like a lead gen fee, to basically those particular banks or credit card companies to give that as a revenue stream to the platform. We also see this happen then in terms of the property industry. This could happen in property construction too. So we can find leads for someone to view and buy a location directly from the developers, then they do pay per leads coming into those things. Challenges is it's very competitive. It's a low barrier of entry. All the information you're talking about putting for lead gen is normally available from the people you are doing the leads for, right? So it's a matter of just copying it, putting somewhere else, and just creating a better experience. Of course, we're trivializing it. I'm sure there's a lot of other intricacies we're not talking about, but generally, the information is there for you to build such a product. So conversion rates are low. It's a numbers game. In terms of games, gaming, not gambling, but games itself, the typical metrics we, of course, how many people are downloading it, how long are you basically playing, and how much money they spend in the particular game, especially the in-app purchases. That's some things you basically would track. The challenges are it's very hard to build a solid game these days, right? Even though you are an independent developer, if you look at all the top games at the moment, they are all from these big studios. The budgets in this game development sessions are insane. So you're going up against those things. And even if an independent developer gets something out, you should see how fast they get swiped up by a bigger boy to basically make that part of their portfolio. So that could be a good business model. If you can build great stuff, you know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So it's very hit-driven business. And usually that first 21 days is a predictor of success, whether this game has legs or not. Coming towards the advertising search, or I guess even the data side of things. So that's basically the challenge, of course, as I mentioned, to scale this, you need numbers, number of eyeballs, number of hits that generates the amount of data that somebody will be willing to pay for in terms of advertisers willing to grant you advertising fees on. So key metrics is, of course, you keep looking at the traffic, making sure that people on the site, click rates, whether people actively engage with the particular ads or not, and the average revenue you could make on a per click basis. So that's basically things you want to track. And then of course, there's the whole new media, all this particular upcoming kind of chat apps and TikToks and the likes of those things. Their key metrics is very simple. It's more on the viral coefficient, right? How do you get that particular product talked about as much as possible? So hence why you keep seeing TikTok videos even on Facebook, because they have to make sure that even though it's a platform that's standalone, I need to bring people in. So how do I get that virality out into the other platforms so I can convert their users to come into my user platform itself? So you need that network effect. That's basically something you have to build in. It's not easy to develop something that of that magnitude or of that particular standing to be viral. You don't see much money coming in until the business scales, but that's when it also backfires. When something like that scales in terms of the infrastructure you need to support that itself could be a lot. So can your revenue support that infrastructure that you need? That's another story itself. So everyone's trying to get into this whole media game, so it's not for everyone. All right, so that's basically how things are then coming together, right? The revenue models come in with the business models, come in with the metrics you need to track them. So we've covered pretty much all the common scenarios we've seen in terms of what typically startups try and do from their business models, where things can be a hiccup, what needs to be tracked. What we want you to do next is see how all this comes together for you. So a few things that you need to basically do is go back to your lean canvas and figure out that cost and revenue. If you can, figure out what are some of the threats and opportunities to it. If you can, then think about what your business model is going to be. Most of you already have one, I think, whether there are options here to think about a new business model based on the segments and the total addressable market that you did. If you're trying to do a B2C, was that too small in terms of growth? You want to try and figure out how to go to a B2B approach instead of a B2C. So think about that. And then the other things we then did was, which will be part of your pitch deck, you want to come up with that milestones. What does the end goal look like just maybe 6 months from now? And what does it take to get towards that 6 months? Break it into smaller chunks, like we showed you in that particular slide, so you can refer to that deck again. And for you to reach that particular 6 month checkpoint, what would you track? So if you're saying you're interested in growing your customers and improving your product, specifically, do you know 1 or 2 metrics you'll always look at? Are you looking at the daily active users, daily new users? Are you looking at how long they stay on your particular site? Try and be specific. I think revenue definitely is not something that some of you will look at now, but if you are one of those startups in this batch that already had something done and you could monetize now, then by all means, try and talk about revenue, try and talk about recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue. Let's talk about those aspects itself. All right,